This video is probably guaranteed to gain a whole lot of attention, garner a whole lot of views potentially because of what I'm about to say. And that is it. This here. Now, I've seen, I've heard, as it relates to BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that it's almost this impenetrable martial arts style in our system. It's gained a whole lot of notoriety since the UFC began, right around that period. Jiu-Jitsu has existed for many years, well before we ever knew of the Gracies or anybody else here in America and the world. It existed way before that. So it's not brand new. It only became popular and gained notoriety during the UFC, Hoist Gracie and so forth. So this is what I want to say. The ground fighting has always been magnified. My hat goes off to all of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners and masters. Love you to death. I won't mention any names. I know a few, but it's not necessary. But your art is limited when it comes to standing up. I hear people always touting that you don't know ground and pound, and you don't know the crucifix and these other techniques and submission holds on the ground and stuff like that. You have to roll and rock and all of this other stuff, and you got to be on the ground so many hours and all of this. I get it. I've studied jiu-jitsu and I've studied some judo. However, that's not the only thing you should learn in a martial arts system. I've also heard people say, well, most fights end up on the ground. Okay, who wants to be on the ground if there's a crowd of people around that could potentially be the friend of the person who's grappling or wrestling with you? Who wants to be on the ground? I mean, that's where we want to not be, right? Every art has its strong points and some weak points as well. So I'm trying to say this in the most humblest way that I can, and I am. That's my intent. And I'm going to say this. Your system should work from standing to the ground. Whatever you study, you should be able to defend yourself standing and on the ground. But you don't want to be on the ground forever. So please do not dismiss the striking art. BJJ. Don't dismiss striking. Because before you get on the ground, you have to be standing first, right? So this is the thing. Herein lies the rub, the problem. Most BJJ practitioners, or jiu-jitsu practitioners in general, they're trying to shoot. They're trying to get you to the ground so that they can submit you. And as I said, they are experts at what they do. That's wonderful. But did you not know that it takes two hands, two arms to grapple someone to the ground? It does. And did you not also know that your opponent or would-be opponent, adversary, has two arms too? Why are you dismissing striking? Because you could be neutralized before you get to the ground. See, we're only glorifying what we see in the sport aspect of what you do. Just the sport aspect, where you have rules, regulations, and a referee, and a clock. In a street confrontation, this is me. If I see you trying to take me down, I'm going to try to avoid you taking me down. I'm just speaking. I'm going to try to avoid you taking me down. If I sense that you're going to do that, and guess what? I have two arms. What a lot of people do who are not versed in ground fighting or grappling is they freeze when they're being tackled to the ground and they're trying to catch their fall, and then that gives the advantage to the person who has that skill in grappling. That's what happens. I've observed this over the years. You freeze because you haven't had that practical experience in your dojo or your dojang or your kun. You haven't practiced that. So it's a normal human reaction. When you slip on something on the street, a piece of candy, water, or whatever on the ground, you usually throw your arms down to catch yourself. You don't think, oh, ukimi, let's use a break fall and then roll from there, or figure out some technique to recover and come back on my feet. We don't think like that because a lot of people don't train like that. So let's stop being so narrow-minded and understand this. The only way for a grappler to have success with you as a fighter or his opponent is if you allow them to, because they have two arms and you have two arms. And if you are indeed the striker that you should be, they're never going to take you to the ground in the first place. And if you are indeed the striker who's well-rounded, elbows, knees, and so forth, they're never going to take you to the ground. They're going to be beat up so bad and bruised. And the fact that they submit you on the ground doesn't mean anything. If your art was that superior, then it should be qualified standing as well. It should be good standing and not just on the ground, because that's a one elemental fighting. If you have a shark in the water and you have a man in the water, that's that shark's domain. That's that shark's element. It's going to win because that's its element. If you have an alligator in the water, that's its element. He's going to get you. If you have a tiger in the wild and you are a man, that's its element. He's going to get you because you are in its element. A grappler on the ground, that's his or her element. And if you're not that as well, of course they're going to win. You're going to fall to them. But when you are in your element and they don't have that element as a strong point, you are probably more than likely going to beat them. So I hope you get the gist of what I'm saying. I'm saying the guy that touts that he's a great grappler and who has all of these accolades and these awards and so forth and has made a lot of money in competitions and that and opened up 500 schools across the world, that's cool. That's all right. But is it because you're only fighting in your element? You take you out of your comfort zone and put you in my comfort zone or someone else's comfort zone who has striking and grappling or just striking. Could you stand toe to toe with a striker, Mr. Ground Fighter? I don't think so. No, you couldn't. Because if you watch a lot of the videos of past fights of grapplers, they have black eyes, busted noses, busted mouths, they bloodied up before they even get to the ground. Should that happen if your art is that dominant? Really not. Doesn't mean that you won't get bruises. I mean, in a street fight, we're all going to get touched. Let's understand that. But stop saying that your particular art is so dominant over other arts. Doesn't mean that it is. What is good is that you're strong in one element, and that's just it. You're strong in that element. As strikers are strong, if you're just a striker, you're strong in that element and maybe not in the grappling aspect. So I'm encouraging you, if you are a grappler only with very limited experience striking, you need to learn some striking. And conversely, the same is true. If you're just a striker and not a grappler, you need to learn some grappling. Standing to the ground is where it's at. That was it. What do you think?